Getting off my shift go-go dancing at the club, I walked past a bag of toys that somebody had donated to charity. Contents spilled out onto the street, and looking up at me was a stuffed donkey with one button eye. For whatever reason, I felt a rush of tenderness, so big and so potent that I picked it up off the ground and carried it home with me. And I have slept with it for the last 40 years. Isn't that strange? I'm so much older now, but I still remember the way it was to know the ache inside me, even before I was wise enough to be able to name it. That child within who was craving that comfort, and realized that I could give him precisely what he needed. And there is the lawn in Piedmont Park where my friend Larry T. and I lay on the grass one morning as the sun came up, the acid we had taken the night before finally wearing off. It was the year of the harmonic convergence, and the energy of change was in the air. Larry was wearing a bowling shirt, and his pupils were enormous. Libra represents the 12th house of Scorpio's hidden meanings, he told me, as if this were hugely important. After the drugs wore off, I realized it was nonsense, but it was beautiful nonsense, and it stayed with me forever. Maybe because I liked the way it sounded, the house of hidden meanings. Or maybe it was because of how I saw myself, as a detective of the universe, searching the house for clues, trying to understand what it all meant. Or maybe it was because Larry was my friend. Months later, when he said he was moving to New York, I realized it was time for me to leave Atlanta too, although I could never say for sure if it was really my time to go or if I was just afraid of being left behind. I didn't just come here to walk down memory lane. I'm here because there's something I need in the place where I was born. Not the hospital in San Diego where my mother gave birth to me, but an apartment building in Southwest Atlanta that I haven't been back to in over 30 years. My old friend James is waiting for me at the door as I pull up in my rental car. I remember James from when this was his mother's apartment. He lived in the basement, which we used as an informal studio and clubhouse, getting high and shooting episodes of a public access series called The American Music Show. Now he pulls up to the door in a metal walker, but he greets me just as warmly as he always did back then. Downstairs, the basement looks the same, only everything is covered in a bit more dust. File cabinets stuffed with papers, old televisions, record players, memorabilia. I pick up a postcard with my picture on it, and a memory cuts through me. I'd sold these postcards in my early 20s and given one to James as a gift in this very basement. He'd set it gently on the shelf, as if it was a rare treasure. Now, over 40 years later, it is in the exact same place. It had been eaten away by time or insects, maybe both, but it hadn't ever been moved. Buried at the bottom of a bookshelf is what I came here for. With an old t-shirt, I wipe away the dust to expose the label stuck on the first tape I see. The American Music Show, Season 5, Episode 6, 1982. There are hours and hours of footage of the show James and I recorded here in this very basement on VHS tapes. I began pulling them off the shelf, only to discover they're stacked 2 tapes deep. And as I move another pile, I find there's even more hidden behind that. Dozens, maybe hundreds of tapes. For every episode we made over the course of several years, each labeled with the date it aired. These tapes are a living document of how I became who I am. A transformation that nobody's seen in 40 years, the only record of which is right here in this basement. "Did you find them?" James calls down, and I tell him I did. I load the tapes into cardboard boxes that I lug one at a time back up the stairs. Before I turn off the light, I look back at the room again, preserving it in my memory. I will have the tapes shipped back to Los Angeles and digitized. It's long overdue, this expedition. I know that, but it wasn't something I needed to do.